Well, that's the thing. Youngsters say, I don't need to understand maths. I'll never need to do accounting because I'm going to be a star and buy companies, and that's the thing. And the factory from hell, sorry, my favourite factory, however you want me to say, whatever you want me to say about it. But yeah, I mean, what was the company, the holding company that owned it? Bungle or somebody, wasn't it? Anyway, yeah, I mean, my dad used to say, whatever factory, they had millions in the bank and they started buying companies. And they didn't realise there were liabilities and not going concerns, and there were millions of pounds in debt, and they lost a lot. Well, they owned Bungle, the holding company. I don't know. It wasn't called, wasn't far off Bungle, but yeah, they bungled it, didn't they? This is what you hear. You hear about these stars who earn loads of money and blow it or lose it or whatever. And you need to understand accounting and maths, because if you buy a company, you've got to be able to read the accounts yourself. Because unless you know an accountant who can read it and give you a good valuation. Well, what did you call it? They're not going to lie to you and say it's a good one when it isn't. But yeah, I mean, yeah, you need to know maths, and particularly if you want to buy a company or run a company, you need to know accounts, because if you don't understand that, they can tell you that the company's doing fine or it's making millions, and it could be losing billions and be zillions in debt. Because I've heard of people doing that. Well, I wouldn't. I would have seen that one straight away. But I wouldn't want to run a company. It's like my dad used to say, I wouldn't want to be in business now, because there's so many things that can go wrong now. There's so many variables in that. He said what he was saying was, it's just impossible to judge what's going on. And there's so many lies and stuff. And now you're better off working for someone else. And he always did. He didn't have any choice at first, but his cousin, he was a good plumber, and my dad used to say, he's daft because he says he wouldn't work for himself, because plumbers in particular and people like that, they're called out every hour of the day, and they never have a moment to themselves. It's true, because the electrician who wired my dad's house, I rang up about something that, for me, I think it's for Dad, because there was a problem with the electrics, and his wife said, sorry, he's trying to retire, he's past retiring age, and can you just, I think they gave us a name of somebody who could do the job. And Dad had a friend who could tell him, who was good and who was bad and who was reasonable and that. And we got someone in to do some plumbing because, I just walked into the kitchen and I said, something along the lines of, we've got a problem, Dad. And we walked in, I said, pointed at the ceiling, and there's water running across the ceiling down floor. We knew there was a pipe somewhere, but it was actually a tank at the far end of the hall. What was it? Was it the overflow cock had seized in the up position, and there was a pipe glued on the overflow pipe was glued on the tank. It had come off and it would come loose. So instead of overflowing and going through the pipe and running out of the eaves, like the end of the pipe at the eaves, it was running down the side of the tank, on the ceiling, along the ceiling, and coming out at the far end of the hall. And obviously he got a lad in that his friend recommended him. He glued it back on, so got it all working. He says, is 25 quid enough? And I said, yeah, that's okay. It was on about an hour. It wasn't bad, really. But he said, like you said, he said, all I had to do is unseize the bulk. You just press them up and down a bit. Because he said it didn't need a new valve, because some do and some don't. I don't know, did he fit a new valve? He possibly did. And that was it. He said he only had to glue this pipe back on. It was literally contact adhesive. You put it on both sides, don't you? One side, let it dry, and then put the two parts together, and it glues on instantly. You've got to align it right, but that's how it works with some stick-on soles on shoes now. I think my dad had gone to cobbler's job with some soles put on his shoes, and they couldn't do it. They said, glue doesn't work. So I says, how's that glue working? And I says, it's contact adhesive. You let it dry, and then you stick it on. And the bloke at cobbler's, I think he went and told you, I think he knew the bloke at the cobbler's or something. He said, yeah, that's how you do it. And he said, surely that won't work. He says, Ian says it will, and Ian knows about stuff like that, because I read about it, and you read it. I don't know whether he'd read the instructions, but it tells you in the instructions for the glue how to do it. It pays to be able to read as well. It's like my granddad and my mother's dad's brother used to say, if you can read, you can learn to do anything. I mean, I read a book on tuning minis. I read a book on the Haynes manual for minis. They weren't that bad then, the Haynes manuals, and I looked at it and thought, I could reshell my mini. The shell, the mini I've got, it's been imported from the Channel Islands in 81, and in those days they gave it a current registration. So it was an X-plated mini, which was the new registration, but it was 73. it was like a 73 Mini on an 81 plate, and I was always getting stopped in it because a rusty old Mini. They said, that's not new, you swapped the number plates, it's nicked, in it. And it happened quite a few times. In the end, I got sick of it, and it was a Mini 1000 that had been converted to a 1300, so I had to get a engineer's report for the insurance every year. It was a right pain, so I put it on a Q plate, I reshelled it, and I registered it as a 1275, so I didn't have to have problems with the insurance, and that cured the whole thing. Did I register it as a Cooper S or a GT? I can't remember, but a Cooper S would have made the insurance worse. But yeah, they were notorious. They were always getting crashed, and GTs were a damp squib really. They were a real disappointment because it was just an Austin 1300 engine, and they did the same top speed as the Mini 1000, and not much faster. But mine, I bought a reconditioned. I asked for a reconditioned 1275 GT engine and gearbox, but they supplied an Austin 1300 engine, same final drive ratio, but Mini 1000 gear ratios. So it went like stinking first, second, and third, and I didn't know. I thought it was a 1275 gearbox. So eventually, when I took it apart, and I knew the part numbers, I thought, yeah, that's a Thau gearbox. It's a 1300 Austin 1300 engine. But my mate just said, "Bah, it goes well, this Mini. I won't." My mate who was killed, he had a Marina. It had the same engine in, but it was inline and not transverse. He said, it's amazing this car, how fast it goes. And I didn't realise why. It had low first, second and third. Because in the Mini gearbox, fourth, you just connect straight through. It's direct drive. You connect the input gear to the output gear. Or you connect fourth to the output shaft. And that's how it works. But the trouble eventually with that Mini was it was so highly tuned that there's an input gear bolted on the outside of the box. It bolts to fourth. And it's shaken so violently that the nut comes undone, and then fourth winds in and out of gear because of the angle of the teeth, and it smashes against the synchro mesh. Because obviously you can't put a constant mesh box in two gears at once because it locks the box up. So when you're in first, second, and third and giving it loads of throttle, it goes into fourth as well and smashes all the synchro mesh on the two gears you're engaged. Mainly fourth because it winds into fourth and smashes the synchro mesh. One I did it so bad, I thought, what's all that? What's the lithium grease in the bottom of the gearbox? And I thought, yeah, it's the Bork rings. Yeah, there were steel Bork rings in Minis. Because somebody at college said, I won't say who, but why did they put a magnet on the sump plug in an Austin Mini or Austin transverse engines? Because it won't pick particles of brass up from the Bork rings that wear. I never took a Bork ring and put it on sale and said, what's that? It's grey, not gold, because it's not brass. There were steel in Austin Minis and in Austin transverse engines, because obviously if they were brass and bits fell off, the sump plug magnet wouldn't pick it up out in the oil. But I didn't want to be a smart ass, because, well, how do you outsmart a smart ass? You don't say out. Because he was a smart ass. He was always having a go at me because I was a top student and that. And that's the thing, I was his best student. What would he ever go at me for? But like a manager who calls his best worker a lot of, horrible to him. Well, you leave jobs like that, don't you? I didn't even want to be a storeman, I wanted to be a mechanic.